Every single year, the Indian government lays out its plan to spend trillions of rupees of our money. But that proposal? Oh, that's just the starting gun for a really high-stakes journey. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the Indian Union budget and follow it from a simple draft document through all the parliamentary battles, all the way until it becomes the law of the land. But first, let's start with a really basic but super important question. How does a government get the green light to spend even one single rupee of public money? The answer isn't just a simple yes or no. It's wrapped up in this powerful democratic process that's all about accountability. And it all begins with the budget. You know, we all call it the Union Budget, right? But the Constitution of India, under Article 112, actually calls it the Annual Financial Statement. The best way to think of it is as the nation's financial blueprint. It lays out every estimated rupee the government thinks it's going to earn and every single rupee it plans to spend for the next financial year, which runs from April 1st to March 31st. So, to get our heads around this pretty complex journey, we're going to break it down into 5 parts. First, we'll look at how this massive blueprint is even created. Then, we'll dive into the 6-stage gauntlet it has to survive in Parliament. We'll zoom right into the heated debates over spending, see how it all becomes law, and finally, we'll ask a key question. What happens when the money just runs out? Long before the finance minister stands up in Parliament to give that famous budget speech, a massive amount of work has already happened behind the scenes. This is the foundation for the entire process. So let's see how this financial blueprint for the nation actually gets put together. You know, this whole thing doesn't just start in February. The budget cycle actually kicks off months earlier, usually around September or October. The finance ministry sends out a circular to every single government ministry and department telling them, okay, time to prepare your spending estimates for next year. These huge lists are then checked, double-checked, and pulled together before finally getting the stamp of approval from the cabinet. All of this work builds up to that big day in Parliament on February 1st. Okay, so once the budget is presented with that big speech, its journey is far from over. In fact, it's just beginning. It now has to survive what you could call a 6-stage parliamentary gauntlet to become law. This is where democratic oversight really kicks in. So what does this gauntlet actually look like? Well, every budget has to pass through these 6 critical stages. It all starts with the presentation. That's followed by a general discussion where they talk about the big picture. Then comes the deep dive, scrutiny by committees. After that, it's time for voting on demands for grants. This is where the real arguments happen. And finally, 2 key bills, the appropriation and finance bills, are passed, which give it the full force of law. We're going to break down what each of these means. All right, now we get to the real heart of the matter, the great budget debate. This is how Parliament puts the government spending plans under a microscope, and it's where the government has to justify every single rupee it's asking for. The key term you've got to know here is demands for grants. The easiest way to think about it is like this. It's basically a detailed shopping list from each ministry for the upcoming year. The Lok Sabha then has to vote on every single one of these demands. Only after a demand gets approved does it become a grant. That's what gives a ministry the official permission to actually spend the money. Now, here's a part of the process you probably don't see on the news. After the first big discussion, Parliament actually takes a break for about 3 to 4 weeks. During this time, 24 different specialized committees, filled with MPs from various parties, get to work. They dig deep into those demands for grants, ministry by ministry, and write up detailed reports. It's a way to ensure a really thorough review away from the loud debates of the main chamber. When Parliament comes back, the real debate begins. This is where the legislature exercises its most fundamental authority over the government. It's often called the power of the purse. And the opposition has some very specific, very powerful tools they can use to challenge the government's spending plans. So what is this tool? It's called a cut motion, and it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's a formal proposal from a member of Parliament to reduce the amount of money in a specific demand. It's the ultimate way for the opposition to say, hey, we don't agree with this, and force a debate on government policy. Now, these cut motions come in 3 main flavors. First, there's the disapproval of policy cut. This is the most dramatic one. It proposes cutting a demand all the way down to just 1 rupee. It's a symbolic way of saying we completely reject the policy behind this spending. Then you have the economy cut. This is a bit more practical. It argues that the spending is wasteful and suggests reducing it by a specific amount. And finally, there's the token cut, which reduces the demand by just 100 rupees. This is used to flag a specific problem and basically force a discussion about it. Okay, so here's the kicker.
while these motions are amazing tools for debate, they almost never actually pass. Why? Because the political stakes are absolutely massive. If any cut motion is passed by the Lok Sabha, it's treated as a vote of no confidence. It means the government has lost its majority and it could be forced to resign. So yeah, it's a very big deal. So after weeks and weeks of debate, committee reviews, and all these votes on individual demands, how does this whole thing get wrapped up and become official? Let's look at the final countdown, the stages that give the budget its legal power.
Parliament only has a set number of days to get through all of these demands. So what happens if time is running out? On the very last day, the Speaker uses a procedure with a pretty intense name, the guillotine. All the leftover demands for grants, whether they were discussed or not, are put to a vote all at once. You can think of it as a parliamentary fast-forward button to make sure the budget passes before the deadline.
Once all the grants are approved, we're almost at the finish line. Two last supercritical bills are introduced. First up is the appropriation bill. Think of this as the legal key that unlocks the nation's treasury, allowing the government to withdraw the money it's been granted. Right after that comes the finance bill. This gives the government the legal power to collect money, mostly through taxes. So one bill lets the government spend, and the other lets it earn. You need both for the whole thing to work. But, life is unpredictable. A budget is really just an educated guess made months in advance. So what happens when something unexpected comes up, or when the original plan just isn't enough to get through the year? Just imagine this scenario for a second. Let's say a ministry is building a really important highway, but halfway through the year, they realize the money they were given in the budget just isn't going to be enough to finish it. What do? Does all the work just grind to a halt?
Well, no. Thankfully, it doesn't have to. The Constitution actually has a tool for this exact situation. It's called a supplementary grant. If the original amount of money is proving to be insufficient, the government can go back to Parliament, even in the middle of the year, and ask for more funds. And it's not just about topping up funds. Parliament has a whole toolkit of other grants for special situations. An additional grant is for a completely new project that nobody saw coming. An excess grant is kind of like asking for forgiveness. It's for money that's already been spent over budget. A vote of credit is a rare blank check for a huge national emergency. And a token grant is a neat little trick. It's a symbolic 1 rupee request to get permission to move funds from one project to another without any new spending overall. So from a simple memo sent out in September all the way to special grants for unforeseen emergencies, the budget process is this year-round cycle of planning, intense debate, and constant accountability. It's this complex, sometimes messy, but crucial system that puts the power of the purse right where it belongs, in the hands of the people's representatives. And the question that leaves us with is this: in our fast-changing world, is this detailed process still the ultimate safeguard for our democracy's finances?